Hunched over, Don Martin Angel ascended the steps. He was 67 years old, a man of responsibility and diligence, and a natural leader. He had been employed by a city insurance business since he was a young man. But the harsh realities of life, which are outside the control of any human being on the planet, made the inherent light that defined him fade. Welcome to USA Stories Channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Only 2 weeks had elapsed since his mother, 90, died of cancer. He fell into a depression, of course, but he continued to be a loving and caring son to his mother, spending as much time as he could with her when he wasn't working. It wasn't intended for him. Lowry would take a long bus journey from the workplace to his house, arriving home around 6 in the afternoon. He would switch on his ancient television, sit in front of it, and watch nothing. There were moments when he believed he heard his mother's voice coming from the kitchen, but it was all in his head due to the intense sadness he felt for her. There's nothing more depressing for an elderly guy than to be alone and unaccompanied, despite having a lovely girlfriend who left him because she was fed up with his indecisiveness about committing to a formal commitment. He never married and had no children. He had devoted his entire life to his education and finding a career that would enable him to have insurance upon retirement and, he believed, lead a tranquil old age. The old guy, bent down, was doing his hardest to report to work despite his deep unhappiness. Being the first one there, he didn't stop working on what to focus on because he was on his computer. If Don Martin possessed anything, it would be his affection and the fact that he was regarded as the real professional for whom he worked. Although he didn't have many friends in his group, most people there respected him for his presence. There had been odd alterations to the organizational hierarchy following the passing of Don Martin's mother, Teresa, 2 months prior. There was a new manager in town, a tall, wide, attractive man named Michael Sotomayor, who caught the eye of ladies everywhere he went. Along with a long list of academic degrees, he also had an outstanding professional background. He had led other significant businesses in the nation with great success. Indeed, he was a very skilled and esteemed manager. But nothing in our world is flawless. Although he was a leader in his area, there was much to be desired in his personal warmth. In actuality, he was utterly impolite and without any. He believed that everyone who disagreed with him needed to be degraded and excluded. Claiming that financial aid stunted the company's growth and reduced the amount available for other expenditures, he'd sent the young interns scurrying and made more than one of his assistants weep during meetings. There were many who agreed with his extreme viewpoint, and others who chose to remain silent in order to maintain their stance, which led to a mixture of love and hate for him. Despite being asked by other companions, Don Martin, being a sensible guy, chose to observe solely from a distance without offering any insights. No flies enter a closed mouth, and it's not always good, as the phrase goes. Sometimes the best ally is quiet. Don Martin went to the grocery one afternoon as he was leaving work to get coffee and bread for dinner. He noticed an elderly woman in a wheelchair from a distance. He came over and assisted her in lowering the milk box she was attempting to obtain with a passing gondolier, but the young guy was unable to hear her due of his weak voice. He froze at the sight of her gaze. Her face was almost too familiar. In the midst of all the uncertainty, he was trying to recall where he had seen that face before realizing how much the old woman resembled his mother. "Madam, good afternoon. Do you require anything more?" "Oh, my kid. I'm so grateful. I already have the solution to the night." "I'm adamant. I'm able to stay till you've purchased everything." "Why would you do something like that for me, actually? Please pardon me. Although my friends call me Cammy, my name is Carmina Gomez." "It's good to meet you. I'm old Martin," he remarked, starting to tell his tale. "It was a very long story, but I can assure you that we'll be friends." The elderly woman questioned, "Are you always this mysterious?" "I'll be honest with you." He went into tears and added, "A few months ago, my mother passed away. When I saw you, you came to me in her image. There was hardly time for them to talk when Doña Cammy's caregiver, a young nurse, showed in and took her home." If he could see her again, Don Martin asked. After she said yes, they made plans to meet the next day in the cafeteria of the store. Don Martin was as prompt as usual on Monday. He entered the building through the glass doors around 7 in the morning. Upon arriving at his workstation, he noticed an envelope. He was intrigued and got to work reading it. It was his termination letter. Startled, his friends noticed the elderly guy disappearing and came over to assist him. It was beyond belief for anyone. Enraged, Don Martin barged into haughty Michael's office. "Sir, can you give me a moment?" stated Don Martin. "Go ahead. May I know why you're firing me? I have read your most recent reports, and there is obviously a discrepancy. That's why we lost a lot of money this month. That isn't feasible. Prior to delivery, I double-check everything. Something has to be wrong, sir." "Are you telling me that I'm a fool who doesn't know what he's saying?" "No, ma'am. I intend no offense at all. Once you've listened to me, get out immediately. You are completely unsuited for your role. It just doesn't work for us anymore." Don Martin had a heartbreak. He had dedicated himself to that company for 40 years, and they had rewarded him accordingly, leaving him on the streets before he could achieve the retirement he so desperately desired. Without delay, he gathered his belongings into a box and stumbled down the stairs. Several co-workers wanted to visit him to offer their condolences and bid him farewell, but their plans were rejected by the haughty supervisor up above. He strolled and arrived to the park. He was shocked to see Carmina, the elderly woman, curled up on a seat reading a book. She gave him a distant glance and then gestured for him to approach with a kind smile. "Martin, son, are you well?" "Well, Doña Carmina, not really, to be honest. I just lost my job at the firm where I spent 40 years of employment. What will happen to me now that I've lost my mother? I'm becoming old, and nobody is going to want to hire me." "What caused your dismissal? Did you make an error?" "Not to be blunt, my boss simply told me that I no longer served him." "But your employer, why is he acting so vilely? Be not demoralized. Come have supper with me at my place." Thus, both Don Martin was shocked to see how big and opulent the elderly woman's home was after Carmina's case. Doña Carmina was a very simple woman with very low manners, therefore he didn't expect such a thing. Martin would have no trouble filling his belly with the abundance of meals, salads, and desserts on the large dining table in the living room. He hadn't eaten anything throughout the entire day. They waited for Doña Carmina's son, the missing family member, to begin dining at the table. The elderly woman had also informed Don Martin about a youngster, and he was eager to see him. The home filled with the scent of a lovely perfume as the keys began to ring. It was Michael Sotomayor, the guy who had dismissed Don Martin, much to his astonishment. The haughty guy exclaimed angrily, "What's this useless old man doing here, Mom?" Sadly, the elderly woman said, "What the hell is wrong with you, Michael?" Don Martin, however, cut the woman off and added, "Mr. Michael, don't worry, I'm leaving too." Donna Carmina realized then that Martin had been sacked from one of her enterprises by her son, the dictatorial boss. The woman ended up being the company's largest shareholder. She was upset with her son because she felt embarrassed by his attitude, and since she owned that company in addition to others, Doña Carmina possessed a kind heart. She had spent years teaching her son the virtues of humility and humanism, but she was now aware that her efforts had been in vain, and she was deeply disappointed in him. "Martin, please go home and report to work as usual tomorrow," the elderly woman replied. "You're going to stay with the firm. I sincerely apologize on my son's behalf, as it is evident that he has not developed the virtue of humility." With no idea what to do, Michael dropped his head. He chose to remain silent since he knew his mother was being severe when she used that tone. Don Martin was clearly happy that the honorable elderly woman had revived him. He couldn't believe it. Tears filled his eyes as he gazed at the woman and thought about his mother once more. "Many thanks," he murmured in between tears. They continued to meet one other in the park where they had first met, and as many more years went by, Don Martin felt fortunate to have a second mother. Don Martin paid close attention to all that the modest elderly woman had to say as Doña Carmina said, "Life unquestionably honors noble hearts and teaches us important things via them. I appreciate you seeing. Would you kindly like and post the video on social media? Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.